Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. I'm Jan Moray here with my co-host, Mona Duncan, and we've got a couple of our regular guests on with us. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to those who are watching on the replay. And today's topic is endings and beginning. For everything, there is a time and a season, I want to say. Is there not joy with beginnings and sadness to endings? How does one celebrate or commemorate when they would prefer continuum? Simona, what's on your mind here?
Well, when things are good, you want them to just keep on keeping on. And when they're not so good, you want to hurry up and get over with. And the thing of it is, with life being life, there's just that mix of both. And I don't know if this is the reason for doing this particular topic, but a few weeks ago, I was digging through my albums and I picked up this Barbra Streisand album. It's a real old one. And I find that more and more I'm singing that, and she's talking about the fact that everything, just like the seasons, everything has a reason. Mm-hmm. And that that those seasons are coming, but depending on the part of the country you're in, they're not always the same. Meaning that sometimes you're looking for like in Texas, you may be looking for a light season of winter and it turns out to be terrible. And even up in the north, where you expect it to be several degrees below, it becomes many degrees below. And it's realizing that this too shall pass, but it's being able to kind of hold on to while we're holding on to. And with 2020 ending, which, can we hear a round of applause for that?
Yes, really.
But at the same time, it's not that, this is the end and that January 1, everything's going to be okay. Is it, as that ending, whether it was really pleasant or whether it was not so, is it over and done with? Well, yes, as long as we can fearlessly and honestly look to the future as being different seasons. And we may look at a new year as being, yes, definitely, if we can see and really believe that everything is that renewed possibilities.
I think there's some comfort in starting over. And, 2020 has been a challenge for many people around the world. And to say, okay, a new year, a new start, things are going to change, things are going to be better, we can start over. And it's kind of, I guess it's kind of like confession, where let's put all this behind us, it's all past, and now we are where we are, let's start here, start new, let's clean the slate and move forward. And
exactly, but in starting that new slate, we need to look at genuinely who we are. Yeah. Because I was looking at the fact that to get to know the real you, the real me, and there's a meditation that I like to do that I just, sit and begin to chill. And I look at the fact that the real me is compassionate. The real me is friendly. The real me is understanding. The real me has things to share. And as you begin to look at the real me, because sometimes we don't really pan out exactly what the real us is. And as we can begin to even enumerate what the real me is. I know, with bunches of people being together, sometimes you want to go, rah, rah, rah. And we did a family gathering. We went on an outing last night. We went to West Texas that they have put on West.
The City West.
The City of West, yeah. The City of West, and has put on this super elaborate Christmas display. I mean, the whole town worked on it. And it is several miles long, and it goes through ponds, and it's not through them, but yeah, well, through them and around them, and lights reflecting into the waters. And I mean, it is, they really did a passable.
Yeah.
Well, there was one person in particular that was not so decided to go. Okay, I'll be a part, but was not so enthusiastic. And I was wanting to complain about that person. And then I thought, the real me is kind of understanding that sometimes you just don't want to do something, but
Yeah.
it doesn't diminish the worth and value of the person. And I began to think the real me is seeing that, what, this person is really trying.
Yeah, because they're making the effort. They don't really want to go, but they know everybody else wants to go. And so they go to be part of the group and to be for the companionship.
Right, right. And so as you can begin to think that this is not their cup of tea, but they're forcing it down anyway, and appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I often find myself as that one person that doesn't want to do it. And I go, and I
Yeah.
go, I don't complain. I just try to make the best of it and just realize that we're all together. Isn't it great that we're doing things as a family and we're going out together and just enjoying each other's company. So there's
Right,
another
right.
way to look at it.
Yeah, yeah. And then last night, as we gathered at this one particular display to take a whole group, one person did not show up. Chose to just sit in the vehicle. And anyway, uh, one of the grandkids said, this is really great because it builds memories. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, it really does build memories, whether everyone is joyous about it or not. So you just make the joy where they're.
Yeah. Well, you do have to create those memories. They don't just happen sometimes. And sometimes they do, but a lot of times you have to make it happen so that we do have something to remember, something to feel good about.
Right, right. And then I thought too, as we would look at the fact and kind of clarify, I've mentioned before, is the fact that Greet the Week will continue, but it's going to be primarily myself doing the reins because Jan you want to give us a little information there?
Right, right. Yeah, Mona and I have been doing this for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years
3 years.
In January, middle of January, and it started as from the Sun Belt board. We get together once a month and end up talking about just different things and how choice theory has affected our life and stuff. And it kind of said, it'd be kind of nice to do this on a regular basis and kind of get our fix of choice theory. And so then Mona kind of wasn't going to let me get by with saying something and not following through. So we ended up putting this together and started it, just doing on Monday. Well, she wanted to do Monday mornings. I said, no, I have to do afternoon. So we've been doing it afternoon. So now we can have our California people join us because it's not at 8 a.m. here, which would have been 6 o'clock your time. So, and we've been consistent. I can't believe we've made it this long, the three years that we keep coming up with new things or a different twist on something to talk about. And so it's, but for me, I'm ready to end this. So this is the ending, and the new beginning will be with Mona doing this on her own. But she will still want to encourage people to come join her, and I will be joining as well, but as a guest instead of a co-host. So that's kind of
And so there have been times in the last 3 years that Jan was kind of wanting to an out, but she finally made that decision. And I appreciate the fact that she has hung in there for all of this time because it's really been a blessing to me. And I so appreciate each of you that comes and, hope we can continue it.
Yeah.
I don't know that it'll be a full 30 minutes, but I will do some kind of a teaching and then close out. And, if you have a question or a comment, kind of like going with Gloria Sasay's talking about diversity, that someone can speak, but get the floor before it begins. And so we'll just kind of, it'll be a try and see as it has been with Jan and I.
And it's been a good learning experience to, different perspectives about different topics. It's been, very interesting. And, but it's just, it's just time for me to move on. I guess as I'm getting older, my freedom need is getting it's getting stronger, which I know that's not the way you talk about it in choice theory. It was always there, but I'm feeling that I don't really want commitments. And so I may show up here every Monday, but it'll be my choice and not something that I've committed to do.
And so will 2021 be, a new beginning? Yes, it is. If we can remember, each one of us, that we are all co-creators. But even though we are co-creators with one another, we need to find out who the real me is. And the real me is being true to ourselves, even if that, it's just being true to ourselves and meshing with others in humane and civil ways. And realizing that nothing changes in our life until we change.
Right. We have to make that first step. We can't make other people change. And even if we do, it may not be what we wanted in the first place.
Right. So in looking at who the real me is, there's a lot of talk about making a bucket list. Well, it's not necessary that everything that you put in that bucket list you would be actively pursuing to do, but if the time arrives and if it becomes convenient, then you know these things. It kind of you're deciding ahead of time. And whatever you do, be purposeful. Be purposeful. Realize that this is the real me, and this is what my needs are, and to honor those. And so the decisions you make out of that, make it be real purposeful. Because as we know through choice theory, all behavior is purposeful. But the thing of it is often we act on those behaviors, but we don't stop to realize or to think about or to maybe sort out what is the purpose of that.
Yeah.
As in going back to the fact that we, went to West Texas, the city, that one person was not gung-ho, but yet I think, Jan, you really nailed the head of what the real purpose was.
Right.
To be a part of the family and to not separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it was a little pulling back, as in, appreciate the fact that I'm doing this or something.
But I think that thought about all behavior is purposeful is so important to remember, because you do things that you don't, sometimes you think, what in the world possessed me to do that? And it gives you something to think about and to reflect on, and saying, well, what was it that I needed then so badly that I did this thing? And helps you to understand who you are, like you started talking about, and understand what you need in your life.
Right. And some of those things can be real enlightening, but there may have been a sadness in the process of that being enlightened. I know back whenever I first started just doing what at that time I called motivational speaking, although Dr. Glasser says you cannot motivate anyone. And I do agree with that, because that goes, if you're trying to motivate them, it means you're trying to change them. That we cannot change anyone, we cannot motivate them. However, there are times we can say something that strikes a chord inside, and they begin to, it's kind of like a lawnmower or a motorcycle that you have to hit it several times for it to kick in gear. So sometimes someone can say something that kind of kicks it in gear. So I did not motivate you, but you know what? You motivated, it was already there.
Right. Yeah.
And so
or you plant that seed that they're not ready to accept or to do anything about at that time. But then when the right circumstances come together, somehow, some way, this thought is going to come in their head, and they probably never remember that that was that seed that Mona planted in my head.
exactly. And that's okay.
It is
okay. As a matter of fact, when we can get the point of life that if someone does get it, and even if they attribute it to someone else, it's okay. Just get it.
Right.
And then that could be true. The real me is, I'm just here to help. And if it helps, fine, but I don't need any credit for it.
Yeah. And that's a hard place to get to. because
It is, but it's so liberating.
oh,
Again, back to
absolutely.
last night.
Yeah.
When we got back home and we were all talking about and what did you like the best, and because we were in 2 different cars, so everybody could have a window seat. And
Mm,
you know, a
the view
Suburban
of the lights. Yeah.
plus a car. And we talked about which did you like the best, and which all this kind of stuff. And I was very, very much appreciative of the person that went, even though it wasn't on your bucket list or on your, you
Mhm.
know. And thank you for cooperating and for being a part. And you know what? Whether that made a tremendous difference or not, it did to me,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
appreciated that they were putting forth the effort
Yeah.
to be a part.
Yeah, and it was great that you noticed that and you recognized that, because so many times all we focus on is that person's got this bad attitude because he didn't want to go and everybody else did. And it's like, well, but they want to do other things too, and we may not want to do what they do, but we do it anyway, and our heart isn't really in it either. And life is just full of gives and takes. You know, you give a little, you take a little, but you got to have a balance between them, because not everybody is going to want the same thing and like the same thing, but because we care about each other and we care about the family and doing things together, we, compromise a little bit.
And because other people do reflect us, when I see something that's being reflected that I'm not that pleased about, I want to look at, oh, well, how do I act like that? So that I can be aware of it in advance and have a little bit more oil to it, a little bit more leeway there. And realizing that um, everyone has worth and value, and that it starts with the heart. That's what I always want to look at. I want to be led by the heart, not by the ego mind. The mind lights up. It lets you know which part is sending, information and messages to the rest of the body. But I mean, from time immemorial, it's been bless your heart, and Thanksgiving is all about from the heart, and love your heart. It's from that's where the true, real me emotions come from, is from the heart. But sometimes it gets all mixed up in the brain, and so I want to look at the heart and let the heart, which with the heart math is really indicating now that the heart gives a lot of messages, and many times they never make it all the way to the brain. And I want to let those heart rendered messages, to me, that's wisdom, make it to the brain, so that it can begin to look at not only do I resemble that, but also if it's something that I am not real pleased about with someone else, how can I be gracious in spite of those times I resemble that? and
Yeah. And so some of those messages that start in the heart but don't make it to the brain, could you still act on them and then your brain catch up later?
Probably, because how many times has somebody said something, well, where'd that come from? Well, it came from the heart, and it may have been something ugly, but it was coming from the heart. But as we can really put our wisdom heart to thinking with the brain and building the brain, rather than fussing at yourself, beginning to say, where did that come from? What was the hurt? Because there is beauty in everything. I think about growing up on the farm, and we had cattle, and they leave a pile behind. And some of the most delicate and the most beautiful flowers. As a matter of fact, the Rose of Sharon, you go, and there'd be, we always called it, we cut our foot when we not be watching and step in a cow pile. There would be some of the most beautiful flowers that was nurtured by that. And so sometimes it's those things that really are yuck. And I'm going to share this. And rather than saying the person, I'll just say a very important person in my life. A very important person in my life that had wonderful gifts and talents and knew how to do things and was trying to help mentor me as a child, but would get frustrated because I wasn't, and I was a smart aleck kid, and I was anyway, sassy and all that kind of stuff. And the person that was very important to me would say, just shut up, just quit it, or I'll mash your mouth. I'll mash and I heard that a lot. And whenever I felt the call in my wisdom heart to just start being a motivational speaker and started advertising, set up my own, I called it Power Lines, and started advertising in the paper and blah, blah, blah. And although I was doing good, there was just something there, that was blocking. And one day, and it wasn't even real. I guess it was related. You're asking about how can that wisdom heart get through, even though the brain's not receiving it. Well, I was driving, and for some reason, I did not get on the interstate. I was coming back to Waco. I did not get on the interstate. I stayed on the side because I just wanted, I don't know, I was contemplative and I didn't even know it, okay? And all of a sudden, I remembered and was thinking about the things I wanted to do, but it was like it was that fear there, and I was afraid to do it and all that. And it's like I got this message from my brain and from my heart that said, I'm releasing your mouth. I'm not going to mash your mouth anymore.
Oh.
And you know what? I pulled over and actually cried right there. I just started moving. And
such a release.
It was such a release. And not only was it a release that healed me, even though that person has been deceased for years, I think it healed them too in the ether, wherever the spirit goes.
Yeah.
So
were you thinking about anything with you mashing your mouth? You were thinking about something that person would have told you?
No, I was thinking about things I wanted to say
to that
about
person.
Things that I wanted to teach, about things that I wanted to.
Oh, just in your core, in your speaking.
Yeah, in my speaking, to just be real vulnerable and all this, and all of a sudden it's like, well, if you say that, I'll just mash your mouth. And it was like, no. And it was just so healing. And although it was, like I say, I think it freed me as well as that kindred spirit, wherever it happens to be, because those spirits rest in peace. Hopefully that spirit now can rest in peace.
Right. Got through that unfinished business.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're getting close. Well, and those of you that are watching now or with us now, I have my family here, my daughter and grandchildren and son-in-law, and they're eating right now, and I'm going to finish up and go in there, because I'm not staying to talk, is what I'm trying to say. But as we do come to an end, I want to share what Gloria Sase talked about in working with some of her clients, which was in the Making Sense of It last week.
Okay.
And she helps them to learn to use, she uses it herself and came up with this, and helps them to learn to use pause. If we'll just pause before we actively do something, even before we go deep into that thought. And so the pause, and it says, for the P, it's push back and breathe. When there's something that you're frustrated about, just push back and breathe. And you know what? That's going to let the oxygen get to the brain where we can think a little bit more rationally. And then PA, A is activate your inner strength. I may have to bite my tongue, but I do have the power to not blurt out what I want to say. So breathe and pause. Pause is pull back and breathe. Activate your inner strength. U is, I scribbled it down. The U, okay, U is use your new learning. Use your new learning. That we can give a pause. U-S-E, S is save the relationship.
Mm.
Save the relationship. And E is evaluate your options. So to
Always got to
pause,
put that evaluation in there, right?
yeah. So to pause is to pull back and breathe, activate your inner strength, use your new learning, save the relationship, and
Evaluate.
evaluate your options. Evaluate your options.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with us today. It's a good way to close and go back and enjoy your family, your grandkids, and
Yes.
for Mona and everybody here, enjoy the holidays, no matter what you celebrate at this time of year. But we will be back next week for one last edition of Greet the Week for me. And we'll hope to see everybody then. All right. So take care.